Okay, Sharon.
Here.
Thank you. David Anderson.
Here.
Bill, we just said is off island. Janet.
Here.
Kyle.
I am here.
David Dellendorf.
He's here.
Paul.
Here.
Jane.
Oui, je suis ici.
Merci. Patty.
Here.
Tony.
Present.
Dick.
Here.
Liz.
Here.
Bob.
Here.
Kevin.
Here.
Olivia. Don't see her yet. Maureen.
Here.
Anne Marie.
Here.
And Tom.
Here.
Thank you all.
Okay. We will go into approval of the meetings minutes. Are there any questions, additions, or suggestions for the meeting minutes?
I had one change, but I sent it to Catherine and she made it.
Okay. Okay. And is that change reflected in what was sent out to everybody?
I was just omitted as being present. So I said I actually was present. And so she fixed that.
Okay.
I was omitted from being present and then I was quoted at the end. So
Sleight of hand.
You do like to make an entrance.
yeah.
Okay. So with that, I accept a motion to adopt the minutes.
So move.
Okay. I see a motion by Jane, a motion by Paul, a second by Jane. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, great. The minutes pass. And the minutes are adopted. For members of the public, if you could please turn off your video and your microphone for now until public comment. That just allows the prioritization within the Zoom platform to put the commissioners first so that we can see each other when we're having our discussions and such. So thank you again.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe we have two sets of minutes, one from the Wednesday 5th
Oh,
meeting and
You
one
are
from the
correct. You are
Thursday
correct.
6th.
Thank you so much for that. So I believe Jane, the one, Janet, the one we were just speaking to was the last meeting, correct? 6th?
Fifth.
Yes. 5th.
Fifth.
Okay. So we're going to clarify that last motion was adopting the meeting minutes from the 5th, from May 5th meeting. Any objection to that clarification? Anybody misunderstand that?
No.
Okay, so I would accept, are there any changes or additions for the May 6th meeting minutes?
No.
Okay, with that, I would accept a motion to adopt those minutes.
move to it.
Maureen, and then is there a second to adopt the minutes?
Second.
Sharon. Okay, Maureen and then Sharon. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Kyle's abstaining.
I was,
Okay,
and I'm abstaining.
Sorry,
So I'll get
I'm
my
abstaining.
camera on. I'm abstaining.
okay, from adopting the minutes.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that set. So
Oh, okay, okay. So two abstentions, Kyle and Liz. Okay, with that, the motion still passes and the minutes are adopted. Okay, so we're gonna move right into follow-up from May 6th with regard to minimum qualifications for elected officials. And then, so who wants to lead that discussion? Does everybody remember that was? Maureen?
I just wanted to ask a question. I think I had emailed something to you. We reviewed this after last week's meeting. We had our meeting on Monday and we did review it. And we're going to come up with some either change in language or subtractions or additions. And we're hoping to have that by the end of the week. So we're sort of not ready.
Okay.
I apologize for not making that clearer. And Dick is helping to do that. Dick
Yeah, I saw that email. I thought that we had put it on the agenda though, so we still needed to discuss that.
Oh,
the
okay.
agenda. So So the idea is that we would bump that to next week. You're saying by next week you'd be ready?
Sure. Let me just pose to Dick, is he ready to have a discussion on that? I would ask if you would ask him.
Today, no. And I'm sorry if I misunderstood. I didn't realize we were going to be back on
Yeah.
this week. If we really need to, Kevin, I could try to have it ready. No, I can't do it by 10 o'clock tomorrow. No.
No.
I can get that.
If we might buy some time till next week, that would be great.
Yeah, I was just clarifying. Sorry, let me be clear. Because it was on the agenda and advertised as such, I thought it was important to at least discuss it. Discussing it does not mean full presentation. It means what we just did, which is you saying, you know, you're still working on it. You'd like a little bit more time, and then we'll revisit that. So we will put that on the calendar for next Wednesday or Thursday if there aren't any objections.
Thank you.
That'd be fine. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. The issue to revisit the election versus appointment of the county manager. I have heard via email from more than 5 of you, I believe. I can't remember now at this point, but I know that the 5 threshold was crossed. And so I just want to remind the commission that this is not a discussion at this point. This is merely a procedural motion to see if there are 5 or more commissioners who would like to revisit the issue of elected versus appointed for the county manager. And so I would open the floor for a motion if somebody would like to put that on the floor, that topic be put on a future discussion item. Dave.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move that we discuss this issue about electing the county manager or an executive in the future at a future time.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Second.
I see Maureen is a second. Okay. All those in favor? Sorry, discussion. We have to call for discussion. Is there any discussion on the procedural motion? None. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please keep your hands up. I just want to record it. So we've got Kyle, Bob, Janet, Maureen, Jane, Dick, David, Sharon, Liz, and Marie. Okay. Any others that I missed? All those opposed? Okay. Tony, Paul, and Tom. Am I missing anybody? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. Chair will abstain. Okay. So that's the vote. It's recorded. Okay. Dick, you wanted to come before I call
I'm
the question?
sorry. I may have spaced out there. Was this the sheriff or the county manager?
This was the county manager. Sheriff was
Okay.
voted on last week.
Okay, fine. I'm good.
So, okay, so the motion carries, and Olivia and I will schedule that on a future meeting agenda, and also let the record know that Olivia has joined the meeting. Okay, so that will be scheduled at a future agenda. Thank you all. If I could remind members of the public, if you could turn off your video until we get to public comment. It's not that we don't love seeing you, it's just that it on the Zoom platform, it prioritizes people with their video on, and we need to be able to see each other clearly. So if you're a member of the public, if you could turn off your video and your mic until we get to public comment. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are going to move right into the committee report on climate and environment.
Okay, Kyle is going to share the document with us, and I'm just going to open. I want to thank the Climate and Environment Committee, which includes Sharon Abreu, Kyle Davis, Richard Grout, Liz Lafferty, Robert O'Connell, Kevin Ranker, Tom Starr, and myself. You know, change is difficult, and sometimes we have to accept change for the betterment of the whole. As a friend of mine used to say, we can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used to create them. And I just want to remind you that the CRC only meets every 10 years. There'll always be a lot of naysayers, and we must really keep our eyes on the future. So the first issue of 5 issues that this committee was given was whether the Charter Review Commission should create an Office of Climate Policy with an independent elected full-time San Juan County Commissioner. The proposal the committee came forward with is that the San Juan County Charter establish the Office of Climate and Environment headed by an independently elected Climate and Environment Commissioner. And that motion passed again today by a 7-1 vote. And I wanted to let you know that today during the meeting, we made some adjustments to the document, which will be made public. And in some of those, we were able to meet some of the concerns that the county prosecutor raised at 9:15 this morning. So I hope you've all had a chance to look at this document. The first thing we did was set out the mission.
Anne Marie,
Yes,
I'm very sorry to interrupt. Can I make one clarification?
sure.
Just for the public paying attention, when the chairwoman spoke to the vote 7-1, that was in the subcommittee. And so process-wise, now this is the presentation, and I should have clarified this in the beginning, I apologize. This is the presentation from the subcommittee to the full Charter Review Commission, and executive action will be proposed today to consider these recommendations from that subcommittee to the full commission. Sorry,
Thank you,
Madam
Kevin,
Chair.
for that clarification. So Kyle, shall we scroll the screen a little bit down so that you can see, everyone can see the mission? The mission of the San Juan County Office of Climate and Environment is to take urgent action to combat climate change and protect the environment. We discussed the scope, and I'm not sure if you need me to read all of this or if you want to just have me move forward through it. Kevin?
I think it would be appropriate for you to at least skim it, but particularly the changes that were made this morning, just in case folks, in case commissioners haven't had the opportunity to review those. But everybody was sent this over the weekend, so hopefully they had a chance to read it. But the changes that were made at the meeting this morning, I think would be particularly appropriate to cover.
Okay. I don't think that we really made any changes in the first paragraph of the scope. One item here that might need more clarification was that the Office of Climate and the Environment shall include but not be limited to the following existing San Juan County functions in scope and staff. And what we've done here is we've taken the Environmental Resources Division and put them under this independent office. And we've also taken the code enforcement out of DCD, the Department of Community Development, as it relates to critical areas and the Shoreline Master Program for enforcement activity by this office. The responsibilities for the office and the authorities, we fine-tuned a little bit of this opening paragraph so that it now reads that the Office of Climate and Environment is responsible for protecting and preserving the extraordinary natural beauty and environment of San Juan County, Washington, while boldly addressing climate change. And this work is going to include the identification of values, resources, and natural systems at risk, and the prioritization and prevention of adverse impacts, reversal or remediation, or detrimental actions, and the application of preservation strategies. In addition to the responsibilities of the existing San Juan County functions listed above, the Office of Climate and Environment authorities and responsibilities also include, and there are 15 points here. And as Kyle scrolls down a little bit, I'll just let you know, this second one here, well, the first one is an action plan. And this is something that we've seen all over the country, cities and counties do, and we sorely need to do that here. The second item deals with executing and enforcing all ordinances and state statutes with respect to climate change, environmental protection, and the mission of the Office of Climate and Environment. The office may adopt rules and orders as permitted under applicable ordinances and statutes. And that language was reworded so that it is the same language that's been used by other charter counties to have the ability to adopt rules. And that would be Snohomish County, Whatcom County, and Pierce County all have the same language. The office also has the authority and responsibilities to draft ordinances for San Juan County Council to consider that combat climate change and protect the environment. Let's see. We're going to review proposed ordinances for climate and environmental impact prior to the San Juan County Council taking action. And this really should be a great help to our council members. Through consultation with the coastal Salish tribes, we're going to draft policies to ensure the identification and protection of cultural resources in San Juan County. We're going to develop new natural resource management practices that are shaped equally by Western and Indigenous science and knowledge, utilizing management strategies that are built over the millennium. We're going to review and submit comments on county permits and the lead agency's determination of probable significant negative climate and environmental impact under applicable county and state law, including the State Environmental Protection Act. The lead agency on this is the Community Development, CDC. Let's see. So we would be making comments about their work. Sorry for that. We're going to review and submit comments on county purchases, both the fleet purchases for determinations of probable significant negative climate and environmental impact, and foster responsible purchasing through the State Environmental Preferred Purchasing Program. I'm trying to see if there's some others here that are slightly changed. We want to influence and educate and advocate for the mission of the office and participate in key discussions at the county, state, and federal level, including relevant legislative bodies, advisory bodies, and commissions. And we want to provide education and outreach in concert with the San Juan County community organizations to further the mission of the office. Another important aspect of this program is to help move forward financial resources, which is also listed above there. As we move into this new section that deals with the commissioner, the San Juan County Climate and Environmental Commissioner shall serve as a nonpartisan elected head of the San Juan County Office of Climate and Environment, and the commissioner shall administer and be responsible for all the duties of and the functions of the office. In addition to managing and administering the office, the commissioner shall play an active role in conceptualizing, drafting, and advancing climate and environmental policies. In order to help ensure that a qualified person is elected, certain requirements must be met in order to qualify to run for or hold the position of San Juan County Climate and Environmental Commissioner. The candidate shall have been a resident of San Juan County, Washington for 3 years and have been registered to vote in San Juan County, Washington for 36 months prior to the election. The commissioner shall exhibit an education relevant to climate and environmental protection and shall have a minimum of 3 years of applicable experience in management, administration, advocacy, and protection of climate and the environment. We originally had 5 years in there, and we reduced that to 3 years because when you look through what the other charter counties have for requirements for running for office, ours in San Juan County is the strictest, but Snohomish County has a 3-year level. So that in and of itself, I thought helped get us to a medium ground of 3 years to have been registered to vote here in the county. We also talked about relevant education, and the understanding of relevant education is also lifetime experience. We talked a great deal about the advisory council, and one of the things that we really wanted to make sure was that this body shall include 7 members of the San Juan County community, of which at least 4 are members of the indigenous community or members representing local green jobs, members of conservation organization and San Juan County youth, and at least 1 is a professional home builder. That still leaves the San Juan County Council with the opportunity to appoint a few more other people. This section 510 is actually the section of the charter where the climate and environmental commissioner would be inserted as an elected official, coming under the same qualifications or requirements as the sheriff, the treasurer, the clerk, the auditor, and the assessor. And that being that they're nonpartisan, and that they are nominated, let's see, what does that say? Except as provided in the charter, nominating primaries and election of a legislative body shall be conducted. So that's pretty standard language. We have employee assumptions in here, and we put this in here because we were concerned. We didn't want staff to feel like there was going to be a huge turnover. This is a very talented and hardworking, visionary group of people, and we hope that we're able to keep all of them. And we want to abide by any collective bargaining agreements. As we move forward, we move into our findings, and this is a subject area where there is much documented research, not just about the world, but about the San Juan Islands and Washington State. But we began by looking at the United Nations and some of the work that they have done in this area. So that's why we lead with the 2,500 climate scientists and 30 years of research that has been conducted on global warming caused by greenhouse gas emissions of human activities being the most pressing challenge facing the world today. We move on to talk about how governments are cooperating on this issue, and that in Washington State, charter counties, all of them at some level have formed some activity relating to climate change. As early as 2007, the year before our county passed its first resolution, Whatcom County was on the books working on these issues. According to the Climate Impact Group at the University of Washington, who released a report in September of 2019, snowpack is declining 30%, glaciers are shrinking, sea level is rising. At Friday Harbor, the sea rose over 4 inches between 1934 and 2018. Seattle has experienced a 9.7 inch increase between 1899 and 2018. Peak stream flow is occurring earlier. Spring peak stream flow has shifted up 20 days. According to the island's climate resilience report, which the Madrona Institute published in 2017, we're expecting to see more fire activity in the Puget Sound region with warmer air temperatures and drier conditions. And the burns that will happen will double by 2040. And we expect in the San Juan Islands, maybe we won't have the fires, but we will have the smoke. And new studies out of California are showing the impact of smoke and those particulates and how they move through the body and kill people. We talk now about the bluffs in San Juan County and the erosion of our land. Then we move on to our salmon population. Coho, Chinook, steelhead trout are with a high degree of confidence rated as being moderately to highly vulnerable to climate change impact. Salmonoids are likely to experience reduced summer rearing habitat due to lower water flows and fewer vernal pools, as well as increased temperatures. Wild and cultivated shellfish, one of our big industries, in the nearshore environments around San Juan Island will face significant pressure from ocean acidification, which will inhibit their growth, increase runoff from more intense winter precipitation, coastal erosion, and warmer temperatures will decrease water quality, affecting growth and survival. This past month, or maybe it was in April, the CDOC Society reported only 75 southern resident killer whales remain in the wild population, and they are facing extinction. What are their three big challenges according to CDOC? Food source. The salmon population has plummeted in the Salish Sea, including the critical king salmon. Shipping traffic and boat noise are a serious problem. Orcas communicate and track food through sound. Humans releasing contaminants in the water, persistent in the whales after they've died, and the toxins weaken the southern resident killer whales' immune systems. Climate change is a significant additional stressor on salmon and resident orca populations as a result. Washington State requires each county and city to have a solid waste recovery plan for contamination reduction and an outreach plan that addresses contamination of materials accepted as part of the recycling program. San Juan County would see noticeable savings by keeping organic waste out of the landfill bound for the waste stream, which comprises about 20% of the waste leaving on the ferry, according to estimates. San Juan County residents want to reduce contaminants from the waste stream, and most residents want to participate in viable reduction programs, waste disposal of landfills, ultimately reduce, this looks like it's missing a sentence here. Well, we're talking about methane production, and there's a sentence missing there. Let me see if I can find it over here. What it's supposed to say is waste disposal of landfills ultimately result in methane production. Methane is a highly potent greenhouse gas, second only to CO2 in creating climate change, and reduction of methane emissions must be a priority to reduce climate impacts and temperature changes. Then we look at Washington State and what we've done here. We've established a deadline of 2045 for achieving zero carbon. Transportation and heating accounts for about 45% of the US greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation and heating are the largest source of energy uses for average households in San Juan County, with 53% of residential energy used for driving and 26% used for heating. We know that San Juan County is the largest individual employer in the islands and also a significant source of carbon emissions. San Juan County has a goal of net zero emissions for its government operations by 2030. The San Juan County fleet includes 350 pieces of equipment, including standardized vehicles, non-law enforcement boats, various off-road vehicles like graders, loaders, pavers, and rentals. 6 vehicles are hybrid, electric, or fully electric of the roughly 150 traditional road vehicles. So that's only 4%. Consumer Reports studies show that fuel savings alone can be $4,700 or more over the first 7 years of purchasing an electric vehicle. Typical ownership savings over the life of most electric vehicles ranges from $6,000 to $10,000, according to Consumer Reports for vehicles that are under $50,000. Residents of San Juan Island, as well as tourists, come from all over the world to hike, kayak, fish, and view our wildlife. Tourism is the #1 industry in San Juan County. To create a sustainable and resilient San Juan County, climate and environmental protection must become priorities. San Juan County Resolution number 08 of 2008 established an initial benchmark. Oops. Let me get back over here because I was reading from that. Let's see. Established an initial benchmark of local climate change response, and San Juan County Council Resolution 20 of 2020 updated that earlier resolution. While number 08 and number 20 lay out meaningful goals, few climate actions have been implemented to date. The consolidation of existing dedicated staff under an independent elected Office of Climate and Environment will allow the bold actions desired by the population of San Juan County to be successfully advanced. Kevin, should we take questions on this before we move to the second issue?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're going to have to jostle back and forth between screen share and not. But I think that'll be good, and particularly up with the different bullet points and such. So let me go back to my appropriate screen here. So any questions so far on the presentation from the subcommittee? I see David Dellendorf's hand.
Yes, thank you, Kevin, and great presentation. A lot of good information and detail and thinking obviously went into it. I'm generally supportive of what you guys are trying to do, but I have one overlying concern, and that has to do whether this position, if ultimately approved, should be an elected or an appointed position. Could you tell me why you decided to suggest this or make this recommendation to include an elected position rather than an appointed position?
I can. I see Bob O'Connell's hand up. I didn't know, Bob, did you want to address that, or did you have something?
Bob had his hand up before. Bob had his hand up before for a question.
Yeah, I had my hand up for a different reason.
Okay, so the reason we decided to go this way was we looked at a lot of different models. For instance, we looked at Fish and Wildlife and Parks, who are appointed by commissions that are appointed by the governor. And we realized that while all of their activities go through the legislature and their budgets go through the legislature, ultimately the governor has the final say on what those departments do. The model we really liked was the Department of Lands and the fact that they have a separate commissioner. Yes, she still goes through the legislative process and the budget process, and she works in concert with the governor, but she is an advocate for the lands of the state. And that's really one of the things that we want to do. We want the person to be collaborative, but we also want the person to be able to take the fall and to be out there aggressively pushing issues that it would be difficult for the San Juan County Council to do, not just because they have a lot of other priorities and don't necessarily have time to focus on this issue, but that this is the kind of thing that has to be moved every day. It's not something you can come in and out of. And we feel like an advocate for the position is really, or for this office is really the way to go. Another component of it is we heard from individuals who explained to us how difficult it was to present their perspective, which might be in conflict to other people that they reported to. And often an idea to move something forward is killed in the food chain, maybe even before it got to the San Juan County Council. And this way, we have someone who is out there at the same level and can actually get the message to the council to move the county forward.
Kevin, can I make a follow-up comment briefly?
Yeah, go ahead. And then I have Bob and then Paul.
Yeah.
And then
I have a huge concern that an elected official does not have authority And if they're appointed by the council, then they have authority. I lived in Seattle. My wife worked for the city of Seattle. She's told me many stories of elected officials who come in with this wonderful agenda, but then they're stymied because the various department heads, for example, will drag their feet, and they have no authority to order people to do things, and then it becomes a conflict and a debate. But if you have an appointed person in this position, then the county manager and the county council have the ability to take action if somebody under them is not doing their duty and is not responsive to a person who is otherwise has no authority over them. So I think that this person, my personal feeling is this person should be elected, and I'm concerned that if the person's not elected, they're not going to should not be elected. They should be appointed, and I'm concerned they wouldn't be effective unless they are appointed. Thank you.
I have Bob, and then Paul, and then Jane, and then Sharon.
All right, I have two comments and questions regarding this. The first is when it came to, I'm very proud of this, what we've come up with, and the votes on the various sections were almost invariably 7-1, 7-1, 7-1, 7-1. The vote for the full thing was 7-1. But when we came to one section, which was the section on the advisory council, there were 3 votes against that. Three no votes, and I think it's important for the commission to know that. My no vote, the other 2 people would have to count for themselves, but my no vote was because I thought that the builder that was added on there should be taken off, and that shouldn't have been part of it. The next thing that I wanted to bring up was I did get a chance to take a look at most of Randy's memo, although not until after our meeting, but before this meeting. And one thing that he brought up was our person's inability to enforce state statutes. Enforcement of ordinances was one thing, but state statutes, he says, would be off the books. And so I think eventually, I think he's probably right. I think eventually we probably need to end up striking enforcement of the state statutes, although I don't know, we could see where that comes out, but those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Okay, I have Paul, Jane, Sharon, Janet, Dick.
Oh, Anne Marie, this might be premature, but I was wondering if you had an opportunity to figure out what it's going to cost to put this person and or their office in place.
Well, my understanding is that's not really something that we as a charter commission have to deal with. But I have said before that I think if the voters make it a priority, we will find the resources.
That's kind of an open-ended book there.
For sure. And so was any kinds of promotions that we just recently supported to the salary commission.
Jane, and then Sharon, Janet, Dick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair. And that was a very informative presentation of the work of your committee. And so I really appreciate that. I had just a minor comment regarding the reference to sort of cultural resources. And I wonder, I mean, I imagine you were including archaeological resources in that as well, but I think that it could be worthwhile to articulate that. It could be worthwhile to also include the word heritage. So, you know, archaeological and heritage are important concepts and might further, you know, generate some, just further understanding and support for the importance of this. And I recognize that already the county in its code has issues related to preservation of archaeological areas in the county. The second thing I wanted to say is really more a personal view on this, and I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who has a 14-year-old child in school in the county, and who, with her peers, is very concerned about the future of the environment. not only in this area, but around the world. And I would be, I struggle to know how that future generation is going to be able to cope with the impacts of climate change, which people may think doesn't exist, but I think overwhelmingly it's clear that it does. And I'm thinking about my daughter's future and the future of her peers and the future of children that are being born and younger. And I just feel we have a tremendous responsibility to think for the future and not just be stuck in the present. And I appreciated your remarks about that, Anne Marie, at the beginning of and opening of your presentation. So thank you very much.
Sharon, Janet, Dick.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jane. I just want to respond to David Dellandor. You know, I don't understand why an elected I kind of get the history of why elected people don't have as much power ultimately, but we would like to have somebody elected in this position who's accountable to the public. If we have a climate and environment commissioner that is appointed by the San Juan County Council, it's more likely that person will be answering to the council rather than to the public. And we really need to push the council. We've seen that we have to push the council on issues of climate and environment.
Sharon, Janet.
Great presentation. I had a few points. The first one had to do with the indigenous inclusion of indigenous people, one in the development of natural resource management, and then the other was on the advisory. I think that's essential. I totally agree with it. I think in your findings, you need to explain why the inclusion of indigenous people. People don't completely understand that. I think it's important to talk about the tribes and who they are and why they're being included in this process. I think that's essential in the findings. I have a question about, there's mention of an elected person. What kind of staffing for this department are you envisioning, or is the staff going to be co-opted from existing staff into this? That's one question. And to Bob's point, I actually do support the addition of a builder on this advisory board. I think when you look at a lot of advisory boards, they become echo chambers. You need to have all points of view about this. And it's just one voice, but I think having one voice, it is not necessarily an echo chamber is essential. And I'm seeing that with the Visitors Bureau. They have just business people, they should have more. But I think having people that represent all points of view is important. So my one was about, you need to put in findings something about indigenous people, but the staffing, what's going on with staffing in this department?
So the staff would primarily be the Environmental Resource Division. And I forget what the exact number of people are, but it involves the clean water utility, the marine programs, the solid waste management, stormwater, and also their cultural resources person. The elected official, one of their responsibilities is really to look for grants, additional funding from state and federal levels, international monies. And by having an elected official, it really gives us a one-up on many other organizations, because we will be doing something very, very different. And the fact that we are an island community allows us to move even further into an international arena and to really make big and bold actions possible. When I've talked with the staff in the Environmental Resources Division, they want to make sure that the elected official is someone, and the word they used was working. We did not put that in here because we didn't want to offend other elected officials in saying that they were not working. But if you say to them, if it's a person like the assessor or the treasurer, does that make you feel differently about the person? And that's what we tried to do with the qualifications, was to really show that this is someone who's going to know something about the science. They are not going to know all of it, and there may be that we need to hire someone that just works on sustainable climate issues. And that's kind of open and out there, but that's the kind of thing that we would be looking at down the road.
Okay, Dick?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to David's question about why elected versus appointed, and a couple of assertions, David and somebody else, I'm forgetting now who, that appointeds have more power. I don't understand that at all. Appointed officials ultimately have to respond to whatever the county manager tells them, and then ultimately the council. Elected officials are in charge of their departments, essentially, except for their budgets. And maybe when you think about the auditor, the assessor, the treasurer, you don't think about that authority, but so think about the sheriff. The sheriff has complete authority over his department. And I think if you look at what has gone on in the county since the council passed the 2008 resolution, there hasn't been a really impressive amount of progress on implementing that resolution. And I think really the only way we're going to get that is to have an elected official who has some independent authority.
Thank you.
I have Maureen and then David Dellendorf.
Dick has just said some of the things I was intending to say, but the first thing I want to say is the work on this proposal should not be underestimated. It is there is a tremendous amount that has gone into building this. And I think this committee did a hell of a job with it. I think that I totally agree about the elected versus appointed, since that's one of the things we've been concentrating on for the last several months. I don't see how, I think initially I thought this person might be appointed, but I've come to see an appointed person in this role to accomplish what is laid out here could be so easily maneuvered by the internal PowerPoints in the county. And that's not going to work. So I disagree with David on that. I also see some, I don't know how to describe this, but there's some potholes that have to be smoothed out here, particularly in the area of reviewing county permits. There's going to have to be more developed in how that is going to happen and how CDP can be integrated into this role. But that's in the evolution of this. That's all I have to say. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. David Dellendorf and then Jane.
Yeah, I don't mean to want to have this entire conversation or most of it focused on elected versus appointed. I do have a follow-up to Dick and Maureen, among others, on that subject. But if you want to move in a different direction, Kevin, and I can hold off until later. I feel very strongly about this, but I can wait if you want to see if the conversation gets into the details of the proposal.
Yes.
The other details.
Thank you, David. So we're going to be looking for executive action today. As with other committees, there will, and some have already been raised, be questions that remain that will need to be flushed out before we adopt a final set of recommendations that are we'll call it our final. But the action we'll be looking for today is whether or not we want to advance the committee recommendations in large part, and so there will be specifics, and one of them will be the elected versus appointed, because the recommendation from the subcommittee is to have the full commission consider the creation of the department, which will be headed by an elected official. So that is a very long-winded way of saying now is the time for that discussion, because we will be looking for executive action today on the recommendations. And David, one last clarification on issues such as Janet brought up on needing clarification in the findings and such. Those are the sorts of things that, similar with past discussions we've had, we would say we're moving forward and we recognize that this needs to be addressed, and that's going to be coming back. And so that's just a clarification on that. But David, please go ahead.
Okay, responding to Dick and maybe others, the authority the person has is over their direct employees. If they're elected, yes, they have authority over the people who work for them, like the auditor does, and the assessor does, the prosecuting attorney does, but they don't have authority over the people in the trenches throughout the county bureaucracy that they need to obtain collaboration from, and if worse comes to worse, to manage so that they do what they're supposed to do. An example would, I'm just going to throw out an example. Public Works. Okay, Public Works is not going to report to this new commissioner or whatever the person is called, but Public Works is being told that you have to take into consideration certain EPA mileage requirements and things like that when you buy your fleet. Well, what if the Public Works director says, you know, this tractor over here is better than this one over here, even though it has lower mileage, gas mileage. So we're going to go ahead and do that anyway. In the case like an elected, the elected does not have any authority whatsoever. The county manager and the county council are not under any obligation to tell that Public Works director, you have to buy this more fuel efficient tractor. But if the person is appointed, then yes, the commissioner has authority through the county council and the manager to tell that Public Works director, yes, you have to do this. And I
guess I would just add, David, to kind of hold you there, and you can continue on. But one of the things that the Climate and Environmental Commissioner is going to do is first they're going to do a plan talking about where we are. And then every year they are going to report to the people of San Juan County what progress we have made. And I believe that if this person is allowed to go before the San Juan County Council and tell them what kind of money Public Works could have saved, what kind of money we could have saved in a preferred purchasing program, I believe the county council and the auditor will be behind the individual, especially because we have goals and targets to meet at the state and county level. But please go forward.
Well, again, I think this person needs to have authority. I mean, I'm all in favor of doing all these things. I just want to see it done the best way possible, and giving somebody the authority by having them elected and having a county council and manager that are part of their team, as opposed to being independently elected, gives them that authority and more ability to get things done and manage the whole process and all the tentacles that go out through the whole county
And I
department.
guess I would just come back to you and say again, if that were the case, what happened from 2008 to 2021 in terms of these programs? Because county councils during that period of time passed resolutions to do things and it didn't happen. The county manager would have been there as well. So, you know, we can go back and forth on this for a while, but the evidence I don't think supports that.
Okay, and we're gonna now go to, I have Jane and then Dick and then Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a question for Madam Chair and Marie Shanks, Commissioner Shanks. So I was not on this group, so if you could enlighten me as to where in the county government the Environmental Resources Division sits. Am I correct in understanding it's the Public Works Department?
It is in Public Works, and the current manager is a part-time deputy for Public Works.
Okay.
As well as running her own program.
Okay, Mr. Chair, my follow-on question then is, what information were you able to obtain as to any challenges that any challenges that the staff who work on environmental resource issues face in terms of having their issues prioritized within that department, which, as I think we all know and appreciate, is one of the largest departments in terms of finance, budget, et cetera. I'm just curious to know what you learned about whether environmental issues were superseded by harder infrastructure issues.
No, I wouldn't say that. And I think all of the staff is incredibly loyal to Public Works and to the county manager, and none of them is going to say anything that is negative about their chain of command or the way things are going right now. In fact, they often are doing so much more that none of us even know about because there's no one out there tooting their horn or kind of standing up and showing all the work that is being done by these individuals. Additionally, there's a lot of things that they would like to do and are not able to do. And we are hoping that this will free them. This is a division that past people that have worked in it and present people, I think, that work in it, and even people in the Department of Community Development would say needs to be its own entity.
Okay,
Because then they would be at parity with others.
I have Dick and then Bob and then Tony, but Olivia in chat, you raised point of order. Do you have a point of order? That would supersede the others.
Yes, Anne Marie should be called on to speak and not interrupt.
Okay. Yeah, so and I will try and push that a little bit. We were also allowing a bit of a back and forth, but your point is very well made. So please wait to be recognized.
Well, I'll just let you call on me when you feel it's appropriate.
Yes. Okay. And then Tony, did you have another point of order?
No, my point was that that Olivia had a point of order that supersedes what we're discussing. So I'm taking my hand down.
Okay. Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. And Olivia, sorry, I did not see that in the chat until after it had been posted for a moment. So I have Dick and then Bob.
Okay. So my response on the authority thing is this position, if elected, will have whatever authority we give the position through the charter if the voters approve it. And appointed department heads will not have the discretion to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Remember, the charter is essentially the county's constitution. So they will have to do it if that's what this position decides. And if it's inconsistent with what we put in the charter. The other thing I would say is we heard from the three speakers, Kendra, Barbara Rosencotter, and Erica, about how difficult it is to find the time to do a lot of the things they wish they could do. And so the kind of research David's talking about, I think, will be much more easily accomplished in this department because this will be their function. They won't have divided responsibilities. So it makes complete sense to me.
Bob, and then David, just clarification, your hand is up. Is that left up or do you have another comment?
No comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, Bob, please go ahead.
I just wanted to.
And then Tony.
I just wanted to agree entirely with what Dick just said. I think David may be misapprehending the source of executive authority here. The executive authority, according to the charter process and the home rule, constitutional provisions and all of that, executive authority is something that the Charter Commission can assign to whomever it wants to assign it to. It doesn't all lie within the county council. So you have executive authorities in the various other elected departments. If you have an elected official, we can put whatever executive authority we want to put it for that individual. And as you can see from what we have drafted, there is a lot of executive authority which is going to that individual. As Dick said, if you don't have an elected official, basically that appointed official has zero executive authority unless it has been delegated to them by the county council or the county manager or whomever. That's all.
Tony, and then Olivia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Shanks and team, thank you for all your work. That seems to me a lot of work. And I have some questions that might sound like rambling on, but please bear with me because I'm trying to put all of these things in a way that I can ask smart questions. I do understand the process of going through all of this and creating or recommending to create a position such as, have you looked at the unintended consequences of having such a position that is so, it seems to me, is so powerful that could eventually affect the commerce on these islands. For example, we have ferries that have to come here using fossil fuels. We have groceries coming in on trucks and airplanes and other things that we order as a community. We have things that have to do with people traveling throughout the island on gas-powered vehicles and so on. So if this position is in place, does that mean they would have the authority to create resolutions that would limit such things and will affect how our construction industry functions? Because as you know, construction, not many things are battery operated. A lot of things are gas operated and they have to bring stuff in. And the other part of that is that we are trying to deal with in San Juan County on affordable housing and things of that sort, low incomes of persons trying to work. How is that going to affect all the restrictions on trying to build affordable housing, trying to build, upgrade the infrastructure, how to fix the roads and all that over time? I know you've set a certain date for that, but does that position have all this power to by resolution, kind of restrict how things are going to happen in this county for the next 10, 20 years and so on?
Anne Marie, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. This position does not have legislative authority. It can draft ordinances, but the county council is the body that has legislative authority. So that would be the decider on legislative issues like you're proposing. So this person would not be impacting that, and neither would this department. They might make recommendations to the county, especially about how the county does business.
Thank you for that. If I may, Mr. Chair, a little bit of a clarification on that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
When I read the proposal when it was sent out, and then I listened to it today, it seems that there's some things that maybe are not clear to me. Again, I'm not the, maybe it's not clear because I did sense that there are some contradictions where this person has the authority to enforce resolutions or enforce something that they've decided could be enforceable. Did I miss something there?
The resolutions can't be enforced because they are not laws. Resolutions have to be turned into ordinances by the San Juan County Council. If they're not turned into ordinances, then they're just nice to-dos sometime in the future. But the position cannot enforce an ordinance. And they can only enforce the actions and the ordinances that the San Juan County Council passes. And the San Juan County Council also has budget authority.
Commissioner Gazelle.
May I, Mr. Chair, may I kind of follow up? This is important for me to be able to understand.
No, please go ahead. And I just want to say to everybody, it's important we have dialogue. So just show me some expression that you want to have a conversation here and I'll call on you. So please, Commissioner Gazelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is the difference between that non-authority position than what we already have currently, where I've heard a couple times now that since 2008, a lot of things have been put into words and action by the council, but action has not happened. How different would that be when you have a commissioner? What kind of authority will they have that actions will happen?
Because they're, sorry.
Go ahead, Emery. And then I'm going to cut this off and go to the next people and we can come back too. So please respond to that. And then Tony, we can come back to you after we allow more conversation or more questions from others too.
Thank you, Commissioner Shanks.
So Anne-Marie, please go ahead.
So if the county council passes an ordinance, this position and this office can create the regulations. They would have the authority to do that within their area, just like the assessor would, or the treasurer or someone else. They I'm trying to remember now what the question was because I got kind of sidetracked with all that dialogue. So
Let
I'm
me
not
rephrase-
sure.
Let me rephrase the question if I may, Mr. Chair.
Actually, you know what, Tony, what I'm going to do is Olivia and a couple others have been waiting for a while. I think this is a really important chain of questions and answers, but let's let another few people speak and then we're going to come back to this in a moment, if that's okay. So I have Olivia and then Dick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to make a safe assumption that all of you voted, and you voted in our county council. And hopefully someone that you voted for made it. I know that I trust our county council, and a lot of what this is based off of is from the previous county council. We have not given the new team a chance to really show what they can do for the environment. And I don't think that this position is going to positively affect our county. I think that environmental impacts and climate change are unbelievably real. I believe in the future of, you know, my generation and generations to come. But this position, one, we haven't identified the fiscal responsibility and the detriment that it will have to our county. And there's a way to create exactly what we're trying to do here in a different way, where we do a reorganization. And I am concerned about where this is going. I'm concerned of who is going to fill this position if it is an elected position. I have heard that there is the possibility that someone on this commission may be trying to create a position for themselves. And to the point of, I'm just not sure. And I think that if this does become an elected position, we need to have a clause where it states that someone who is on this commission, who is creating this position, can't be a part of that department for some time, because that's a conflict of interest. And I have people coming to me asking if that's what's happening. And I'm not sure what to tell them. And I don't know if this is something in your community that you're experiencing that people are asking, but I think it's something that the commission needs to discuss, because if we do create this position, we need to think about who's going to fill that spot. You know, again, I believe that we need to make some changes for the environment. We need to focus on that, and we need to come together as a community, or you know, things are going to be pretty bad. And I just think that there's a better way to do this than creating an elected position.
Okay, I have Dick and then Maureen.
Well, I took my hand down because I saw some hands come up from people who have not spoken, so I wanted to let them go.
Okay, I'll circle back to you.
Okay.
I have Maureen.
I've spoken, but I would like to just say something to Olivia. We are not electing anybody on this. We are proposing something to the voters. It will be their decision ultimately. And if the voters believe this is an important thing, they'll vote for it.
Okay, Patty.
You're muted, Patty.
Yeah, my comment is not in response to Olivia's comment, but I think for me, the problems that we're having, and we do have a lot of infrastructure right now to deal with what we're talking about, but we don't really have enforcement. And I don't know whether this position will have enforcement behind it either, or if it's just making more regulations and you know, doing the things that we already do, but we don't enforce.
Okay, so Liz.
So Olivia, to loop back around to what you were saying, and that we haven't given the new council, an opportunity, which is, I respect that comment totally. My framework for that has to do with in 2003, this county adopted the Earth Charter. So for me, the clock starts back there in terms of looking at how the council has acted since then. And somebody here could tell me how many councils 2003 until the current one represents. So that was my point, is that we've had a number of years running and those haven't been acted on. And now we're getting into a tremendous crunch time. And I also think that working, we spent a lot of time talking about not having this position be in any form of opposition to the county council, but to provide them shield and to take some of the weight of the what needs to be done, off of them, and try to set it up to work very much in concert for what both, from a visible standpoint, the beauty of our nature, from an economic standpoint, all stays intact, into the future. That I'm done.
Okay, I have Anne-Marie and then, oh, I'm sorry, no, it was, I'm going to circle back now on people that have already gone. I have Dick and then David and then Tony and then Anne-Marie.
Okay, so two things in terms of Olivia's comment about whether somebody's trying to create a position. I would go back to what Maureen said, which is that we're putting something in front of the voters, and the voters will decide whether we're going to do this. And then if somebody on this commission actually is thinking about running for that position, I don't care, because the voters will decide whether to elect them or not. And then in response to something that somebody said earlier also, I can't remember who it was now, but about what authority is this position going to have? It may have some limited authority to do enforcement on ordinances that the council has passed. But beyond that, to my mind, it will have the bully pulpit. It will have the ability to raise these issues and raise them in a way where the council at least has to discuss them and deal with them. And it also, as somebody mentioned, can be the lightning rod. If there's going to be heat associated with some of these issues, then this independently elected official can take the heat as opposed to the council, which in my experience with working with a lot of elected officials makes them really happy if somebody else can take the heat.
Okay, I have, Dick, were you done?
Yes.
Okay, I have David and then Tony and then Anne-Marie.
I heard somebody say enforcement authority. Again, authority and enforcement, they go hand in hand. And if you don't have authority and you don't have enforcement, you have a weak manager not able to get the things done that need to be done under this kind of these responsibilities. I also want to ask Anne-Marie about reaching out to the other counties that are cited here about whether they are elected or appointed positions. I just started by looking at the first three. Clark County is not an elected position. You cite the Department of Environment and Sustainability. I just looked on their website and that position is not listed under elected officials. The same for Pierce County. Snohomish County, I wasn't able to make a determination one way or the other. But what I would think it would be helpful, because I think this is key, and I don't agree with leaving it to the voters. If they don't like it, they don't have to approve it. We have to put our best foot forward. We have to have the best proposal possible. And if we're not 100% behind something, we can't just say, oh, let the voters decide. I just don't understand that argument. We're going to have the best proposal. And if people think that it's elected as the best or appointed, so be it. But we have to think going into this that we have the best proposal and that the voters will agree with us. So Anne-Marie, the question is, have you spoken to others about their experience and how they've implemented it and whether they're elected or appointed positions?
Anne-Marie, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. No, I haven't. Actually, we tried to set up some time with the person from Honolulu who has the program, and he was in the process of moving his office. But here's what you need to know. all of these counties and cities began working on this in 2006, in 2007, in 2008. Okay, so they were on it and they've got it and they're moving forward in different capacities now. So they didn't have to elect somebody, their leadership did it. That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. Okay. I have Tony and then Anne Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Shanks. I'd like to circle back to what I was asking, and we were asked to kind of postpone. So the question I have that I've heard now from yourself and from one of your members, that one is this person will not have any enforcement authority, but then another member said that they will have enforcement authority of resolutions that the county council has passed. That's just a statement. The question is, since this person is not going to have authority to create things out of thin air or out of their own procedural things that they feel are important for the county, what's the difference between that ability to do so and the council following up with a resolution that's different from the current environmental positions in the different departments in the county, let's say in the road department? Why wouldn't the council create those kind of resolutions without this position in place? I get it, a lightning rod, I get the responsibility and I get all that. But why not have the council, the current council, who 67% are new, maybe they have ways of creating these resolutions and these legislative things that could be enforced by the different departments that are currently in place. Why have a government position such as this that has all this authority, supposedly, but no enforcement powers? I'm just not clear about how this will work in San Juan County. I just need some clarity on this.
Anne Marie, do you want to respond to that? And also
Sure.
I have you next on the agenda too.
Okay. So it's a little bit nuanced, but there are resolutions and then there are ordinances. And our county council has passed some resolutions, and resolutions, they can be all kinds of things. Sometimes they're nice to do things, but they don't have the force of law. Ordinances are legislation, they have the force of law. Regulations come out of ordinances. This individual has the ability to draft ordinances for the county council. This individual has the ability to draft ordinances and come up with concepts for issues for the county council. This individual also, the way we have defined it, has the authority through the code chapters for the critical area ordinance and for the shoreline master program and the State Environmental Protection Act to enforce those laws in the county. They would have that piece of community development under them. We heard consistently, I think at every meeting that we had, people coming forward and saying they are tired of seeing the laws just thrown out the window, and then somebody comes in and says, you can't do that. And they say, how much does it cost to fix it? Or it happens on the weekend. And then on Monday or Tuesday or Saturday or Sunday, somebody tries to get out there that's a government employee and the work is already done. So then we are now into either remediation or reversal. And remediation, many people have the resources to just pay the fine and walk away. And that's not what we're hearing from the people that are interested in these issues. They're concerned that there's a lack of enforcement. And that's one of the other things that we see this advocate being able to do. And it's also a way, once again, to take the heat off the county council, because this person would be the one that would be out there talking about the violations and what we're trying to do to protect our shorelines, to protect our habitat. So that's just, I say that about the resolutions and the ordinances. Only the county council has the authority from the state to do legislation and the budget. So that stays with them. This person is a resource for them. This person is someone that is, to some extent, like Mylene is with the budget, where she can put it all together for them. She can make sure they don't make mistakes. She can be there as a resource and at the same time say, you know, I don't know that that's such a good idea, because this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. The county council has issues coming out their hat. You know, they've got, like you said, housing. They had a pandemic last year. You know, they've got all kinds of stuff going on with the economy here. So, and each one of those members has a list of priorities, you know, and this takes a little bit of the burden off of them. They still have to say yes to certain things, but it does take some of the burden away from them. And that's all I have to say. I was going to come back and point out to Patty that they would have this critical area ordinance, a shoreline environmental protection, or the State Environmental Protection Act. But I think that's good.
I have Sharon, and then Olivia, and then Paul. And at some point, I'd like to call myself too. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was really basically was going to say what Anne-Marie just said, which is that nobody, whether they have a deep desire to have the time to deal with the environmental issues, nobody has the time to make it a priority, and we need to have somebody to make it a priority.
Is that it? Okay, Olivia.
Thank you. I know that this committee has taken a lot of time to come up with this proposal, and I would love to know what happened to number 3 and 4 and 5. Like I totally support, you know, the green waste proposal. I'm not sure where that went. I know that we're just on this topic, but I hope that we get to that. Sure. So the kind of what I'm hearing is like, this will be a support to the council, this will be a support to the council, but you know, there's a reason why Jamie Stevens, Christine, and Cindy have all said that they don't support an elected position. You know, that to me sounds like they have a plan that they're trying to execute. Plans take time. So again, I want us to consider that, you know, the county council that we all just voted in, 67% of them are brand new, I'm sure are coming up with some kind of plan. How could they not? And I'm fully aware that we're not picking the elected person. I know, I'm not a dunce. But what I'm trying to say is that I think we need to talk about the fact that, you know, are we creating an elected position for someone who's on this commission, and the obvious conflict of interest that that's going to create. And if that's not the case, cool, like great, then it's just an island gossip, you know, in the rumor mill. But I would like to know if anyone is planning on running for this position, and if they are, you know, who are you? And let's squash this island rumor.
Okay, I have Paul and then Janet.
Oh yeah, I was going to run for commissioner over this new.
Yes.
Just teasing. So Anne-Marie, did I understand you to say that the new commissioner would have the ability to write ordinances? Did I hear you say that?
No,
Okay.
only the county council writes
Right.
ordinances. I'm sorry, I didn't raise
Draft.
my hand. I'm sorry, didn't raise my hand.
Just want to make clarify
Marie,
that.
and Marie, you can go ahead and clarify, but just to, I'll jump in. The language is that they would draft ordinances for the county council consideration.
Draft ordinances. Thank you.
Paul, did you have another question?
No, that's it.
Okay, I have Janet.
I just want to talk about the politics of if this is voted forward and we present this as a charter amendment. And again, this is the next steps, and I'm a little vague on this. My understanding is, Kevin, then you'll go before the county council and say, here are the things we're going to put on the ballot, A, B, C, and D, including this. if the county council were so vehemently opposed to this, could they then put up their own version of this amendment? Or what happens? I mean, what happens?
Okay, so I will respond to that. So the process, hopefully it's not just me, but we are on the calendar, I believe, on the docket for June 8th before the county council, I think. I can't remember. But sometime in early June. Thank you, Olivia, for nodding. And the plan is that we will come up with our final recommendations, hopefully by the end of this month. And then the process is that those go before the county council. The county council does not, by authority, have the ability to change our recommendations. They do have the authority to add additional recommendations. And what has happened in the past is that they would have a public hearing on the full set of recommendations where the public can weigh in at that point. And then that will go to the ballot. So whatever we recommend will go to the ballot. Whether or not it goes solely or has additions is up to the county council. Why? And so that answers your question. So any other comments from you, Janet? Okay. I was going to call myself on one thing. First of all, I'm not aware of Councilman Stevens or Minnie responding. I know that I just broke my Apple Pencil. I know that Councilmember Wolf did comment during our public town halls. I will say that while it is not unlawful, it is inappropriate for the county council to weigh in at this point. Yes, they are independently elected officials and they should weigh in when needed, but there is a formal process that Commissioner Brownell just had me refer to. In the past, county council members have not weighed in at all until their public hearing. And I will say that when I was a council member and they were discussing my job, they were discussing whether or not I was going to go from full-time to half-time only a few months after I had been elected. And I was asked by a lot of people, and my comment was, I will not respond to this in a public manner because I believe the people should speak. And so I think it's really important that our job is to, and I can't remember if it was Tony or David who brought this up, but our job is David. Our job is to put forward as close to a unanimously approved proposal as we can, just so that we can try and have a united voice, but also that we put our best step forward. We put our best ideas forward. And so that's why we're having this lengthy conversation this evening, is to get through this and try and come up with those suggestions. And then those will go before the county council and then ultimately to the public, and the public will vote upon it. As you will have recognized, if you were here for the past charter commission work or the one before that, it is not our official duty at this point in time to be campaigning for this or pushing forward ideas. But in the past, as soon as the work is done, those commissioners have advocated publicly for the position. And I would imagine that would happen at this point in time too. But right now, our sole responsibility is to try and come up with just as best recommendations. Tony, you got me distracted there for a minute. As best of recommendations as we possibly can put forward. Then the county council will address those, and then the public will ultimately have a vote. So I hope that more thoroughly answers the question. So Anne Marie and then David.
Yeah, I would just like to say that there are a lot of talented people in our community who would qualify for this position. And I would not want to see this commission do anything that would discriminate against them being able to put their name forward.
David and then Paul.
If it were an appointed position, Anne Marie, nobody would be disqualified. Everybody would be under consideration, whether they're local or national. I have a request. We're talking about hiring somebody to work with Catherine and do research. I saw one of the terms used for this responsibility of this new person, research. Would it be possible, would people be agreeable that I or the entire commission agree to ask this person to do some research of all the counties that are mentioned by Anne Marie here? There's like 6 counties or so. Ask them, first of all, determine if it's an elected or appointed position, number one. Number two is, has it been successful under whatever structure they have chosen? And number three, whether it's successful or not, ask them what the key elements are that made it successful or made it a failure. So we can learn from the experience of others on this particular subject. And I don't know if that's the kind of research that was contemplated when we talked about this person's new task, but I would like to suggest that if that's not possible, I'd like to ask Anne Marie's group to do that. Because I'm not sure just saying that they have these departments really is the whole story. That's not what you're not determining whether it's successful or not. And so I would suggest that kind of approach with our research specialist or whoever fills that position, if that is what you had in mind, Kevin.
So
thank you,
David. So we can get back to that if we get to it under new business. I have an announcement in case some of you haven't read the email I sent out only about 10 minutes before this meeting started. But we have a delay on that as well. I will say that I know off the top of my head, there is no other elected climate office anywhere in the country, period. We would be the first, which I think is a bold move that should be considered. Paul and then Maureen.
And what's the difference between an elected official and an elected commissioner? I think some of the electorate like to know that answer too.
Say that again, Paul, please.
The difference between an elected official and an elected commissioner. What's the difference between elected commissioner and an elected official?
There's no difference. The commissioners that.
So why don't we just reference to as an elected official?
I think that's semantics for this conversation. So I think we're just saying one and the other. So if you want to refer to it as an official.
Well, I'm thinking of the electorate too that comes to vote for this. They probably have to scratch their head a little bit here.
Okay, understood. I have Maureen and then Patty.
I am not sure that I'm correct about this, but I think that at the end of our work, when we turn in the final product, even though we are still charter review commissioners for the rest of the year, I think that there's a transition. And if you are going to promote any part of the proposals, you have to kind of form a separate group like Citizens for Climate Control or something like on the side. I'm not sure, but I think we need to get clarification of that.
I'm sorry, I got this.
That's
Go ahead,
okay.
Anne-Marie, do you want to respond to that?
I think that seems really premature. We haven't even had the commission vote, but I would agree that we would want to know ethically what our responsibilities were.
I was just responding to what Kevin said earlier, and I think there has to be some clarification on what happens later. Okay, sorry.
And sorry for everybody, I just have to, Catherine, I just want to clarify, are you host again? Because I've been trying to let people in from the meeting room and I'm trying to run the meeting and it's not working. So are you host again now?
I don't think so.
Catherine?
It shows us as being co-hosts.
Okay,
You're
sure.
still on as co-host.
So you're able to let people in from the waiting room?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought was happening because they were disappearing, but I just wanted
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Sorry. Okay, thank you for that. I just want to make sure nobody was waiting. Okay, we're going to go to Patty.
I'm only commenting on what Paul said and in response to Randy's memo that he sent out, and was one of the first things he addressed was the word commissioner and how this really isn't the appropriate title for this person, because a commissioner is somebody who's in a commission rather than the commissioner. And we've been talking about, the climate commissioner because it sounds so cool for a long time, but that's us in our commission. And it may be what Randy says is true, that officer is the better word, but we haven't been using that. So I don't know, but that's just to Paul's
Thank you, Patty.
Okay. I'm going to call on myself. I don't see another hand at this point. So a few points. One is that with regard to the last point, Patty, there's actually a few things that were raised in the legal memo that I think that we will review as this goes forward. We're still looking for action tonight on the concept. And if there are issues, for instance, in the memo, we have rulemaking, and there's a question that's been raised by the prosecutor on what level of rulemaking may be able to exist with regard to certain aspects of this position. The recommendation from the subcommittee chair is that we move, and just like we've done in the past, we will move forward with this. And if there are issues after we have a discussion with the prosecutor that don't fit, then in the final approval of everything, we would say, and this has changed. So that last meeting is going to be difficult. With regard to commissioner, there's actually a number of elected offices nationally and within Washington state that are known as a commissioner that are single entities. And so I actually disagree on that one, but it could be another name. Commissioner, we don't have to stick with commissioner, but I think it's important to pay attention to those sorts of things for clarity. Let me see if there was something else I was going to raise. Oh, you know what? I was going to raise on the issue of prioritization. First of all, whoever, it was Olivia, I think, who brought it up. We have a new county council who may do, I imagine will do some incredible things. I also want to point out, though, our previous county councils, I think, did some incredible things. And the issue is, having been on the county council and the commission, I think I'm the only living member who's been both. I will say that it really also comes down to an issue of prioritization. The county council has to do everything. It's one of the reasons why 15 years ago, we finally moved officially to a county manager so that they could delegate some of those duties. But the issue of prioritization is difficult. And so what you have in creating an independently elected official is that that official will be able to prioritize these issues because that's their only job. It's their only job. And so they will be able to bring them forward. In some areas, this charter has the ability to grant them authority to do some really wonderful, bold things with regard to climate and the environment. And so this position would have some authority. It will be limited by state statute and the ability to the abilities under the county. But they will have authority. And so they would be able to move forward. The other thing that I wanted to raise is that we know, and this is proven, you look at any county, if you're going to hire somebody, if this weren't an elected official, it's going to cost more, significantly more. The discussions at the subcommittee level were that this person's salary would be pegged to the other elected officials, not necessarily the council, but the other, whatever you want to call them, the functioning elected officials like the auditor and so on, because they would have a department and such. That said, that official would be paid at whatever the salary is going to be after this fairly significant raise that was just granted. If we recruit, we're at least, so say that's in the $100,000 range, you are at least at $150,000 or more just to get the person, and that's before the fringe benefits. So you're say a third more minimum, and that's what we have found. And I have actually spoken to officials from several of the other jurisdictions in state and outside of state that have these, that have similar departments. There's not actually a similar department, but comparable. And that was one of the things that became clear to me is you look at the salary, the compensation, it's significantly more. So I see David and then Tony.
If this is truly an existential threat to our county, which I think we believe in some time frame, we may differ on whether it's 10 years or 100 years or 500 years, but we need to spend the resources necessary to accomplish the goals of this kind of provision. So I'm not concerned about the added costs. And then Kevin, you said that an elected has established priorities. You inferred that an appointed doesn't. Well, the appointed has priorities too. They're laid out here. We lay it out just like we do if it's an elected recommendation. And as to the previous county council not having done anything, well, personalities, priorities politically, for example, whether they believe in climate change or not, that comes into play possibly. But time and not having the resources. This, whether it's elected or appointed, now you have a person. You have a person who has this responsibility and they can focus on it and they have their priorities set by whatever we come up with. So, and I think this current county council is going to, even if we don't have a position elected or appointed, I think they're going to do a lot more than previous county councils. But they will be able to do it, and having more authority, more power through the county council. I just think it's, I just don't understand the counter argument. Because I got to ask some of the people who have spoken out of elected, we've had conversations a lot about elected versus appointed certain positions. And one of the things we've always come up with, well, the electeds are responsible to the public. Well, the appointeds are responsible to county council, and the county council can direct them. So I see that actionable for a person who's not doing their job is a lot quicker if you have them reporting to the county council than if they're elected and don't do their job. You got to wait 4 years and kick them out of office or vote them out of office. So I think they need to be responsible, and they have the authority if they go through the county council. Thank you.
Okay, I have Tony, Jane, and Liz, and then I'm going to call back on myself.
You want us?
Mr. Chair, thank
Yeah,
you so much. So again, I just heard from another member of the committee, Mr. Chair, you just said that this position is going to have some enforcement authority. Can you clarify what that is? Because the chair of your subcommittee earlier said something that was different. And then another member of your committee said that they will have authority to enforce resolutions by the council. So I'm getting confused, and I'm trying to figure out if this position is going to have authority, what is that authority, and how the enforcement is going to work?
Okay.
Thank
So I will call myself a few. I want to go to a couple other people, and I'll add that to the list. Tony. So I'm going to go Jane, and then Liz, and then myself.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm realizing that we haven't completed their presentation yet, and there's still a couple more issues to be looked at. And I'm also conscious of the issue that is under new business that relates to the decision not to hire Mr. Kyle Loring. And that is pretty problematic for our Justice and Equity Committee. And so I just really hope we will have time to discuss that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I have Tom. No, I have Liz and then Tom.
I withdraw my comment.
Okay, Tom.
Well, my comments are pretty short. I've sent you all a paper that you can read about what I think. But in a nutshell, I think you're creating one of the most frustrating positions in the state of Washington. And
for the individual,
you know, all this responsibility and these endless findings with literally no authority. And so I'll just leave it at that. The frustration of this individual will be unsurpassed.
Okay. There aren't others. I'm going to call on myself to respond. Oh, Sharon.
Yeah, sorry, I hit the heart icon by accident. Gosh, I'm losing my. All right. I think that if we create this position, which I think is a very important position, I think the majority of us agree that the county council and the people who are in the county structure right now do not have the time to prioritize climate and environment. And there will be a lot of people to support whoever this person is. It's not going to be like they're dangling out there by themselves with no interaction with the public. That is not going to be the case at all. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see another hand, so I want to check in on process, but I wanted to raise David. I'll get to you in 1 second if that's okay. I can't remember who I'm responding to now, but I think it was Tony was asking me. So the enforcement, I believe, and I can't remember the final version that we adopted went into this, but the enforcement is that portion of the enforcement ability that is currently within the Community Development and Planning Department would be in this department. So this department would have that ability to enforce. Catherine, can you just take me off being co-host? I don't want to be co-host anymore. There's too many distractions. So that's the enforcement piece. The rulemaking ability. There's some questions that the prosecutor has raised that we need to get to the bottom of, and that will be finalized. And then, the other issue. One of the things I wish we all could have frankly had the time to be on every subcommittee, because I think we all would have learned a great deal. But one of the really important things that we heard from current and past employees of the county that said that they didn't believe the county council or the county manager were trying to undermine them or anything like that. But when they came forward with very important issues, they were either told by the county manager or eventually by the council that they were going to get to that or they would get to it later. It wasn't prioritized. And so the biggest difference is, and I shared this, at the state level, when the commissioner of public lands would come into my office when I was writing the budget, it was a very different interaction. Or when they would come and testify in front of the legislature, it was an entirely different action and presentation than what you would hear from an appointed official. Because the appointed official, often they wouldn't even testify. If it wasn't on the list of top priorities for whoever their boss was, in many cases the governor, it was shot down. And so what we heard from county employees was the similar here at the county level, which is they would go to the county manager and say, oh my gosh, there's this really important salmon issue, or there's a really important climate issue. And they would be told, well, we're not bringing that to the county council for ratification at this point, and we'll get back to it. And so that's the issue of prioritization. So again, it's not a jab at any current or past council members or the county manager or anything. It's the ability of an independently elected official to stand up and say, this is my priority, period. And so the process thing I wanted to get to is to move us forward. Kyle, I'll get, okay, I'll circle back on the process. So we'll go to David and then Kyle, and then I have a process point. But the other thing I wanted to say is we are at 5 till the top of the hour. We still have another 40 minutes left in the meeting overall, but this is when we go to public comment. So what I'd like to do is pause and go to public comment and then discuss the process. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna hold off on the public comment for one moment, just so I can share the process idea so the public can take that into consideration. The feeling that I have tonight that I would like to suggest is there's obviously more discussion. So we're going to continue this discussion in a future meeting. And I don't think we can do it tomorrow because that agenda is packed, but we'll put it on for Wednesday of next week if we can. But tonight, I still think we should take action on whether or not we should create the department headed by an elected official. That is the recommendation from the subcommittee. And so I'd like to put that forward. I also want to say for the record that I have no intention of running for this position, particularly after the last several weeks of this. So if that's the scuttlebutt that's going around, that's not a reality. The reality is that I believe very strongly that if this isn't an elected position, I don't think it'll be successful. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to public comment. When we come back from public comment, we'll go to, what did I say? It was Kyle and David and then Kyle. So let's see here. I see Rick Hughes we'll go to first, and then Jonathan.
Hello, my name is Rick Hughes, and for the record, I operate Ray's Pharmacy in Orcas. Kevin, I wanted to say thank you for not taking personal attacks at former council members. I was really appreciative of that, so I appreciate the heads up there. I wanted to reach out to this whole crew and say thank you for all the effort. I know you guys have put a lot of work into this. Respectfully, though, I cannot support an elected position and will probably take a fairly active role in opposition to that. There's so many reasons why, and it'd be another discussion. I don't want to take up time from other people, but just off the top of my head really quickly, I think it'll cost a lot of money. I think it will take up to a third, if not more of a third of power away from council. And I think you're going to lose a lot of really good staff over this. But in hindsight, but to be thankful on the flip side, if this does pass, I'm now going to get back into politics. So thank you very much for potentially having that opportunity to run for the climate change official or whatever it is. But anyway, thank you for the hard work. I appreciate it. It's not an easy subject, but I haven't agreed with a lot of things that were said here as someone who was actually in the trenches, and you don't necessarily have to agree with any politics I may have had. But I tried for the best, the bottom of my heart, do the right thing here. And I just don't
Oops.
with a lot of the statements that were made on the process of how.
We're losing you, Rick.
Rick, you froze there. Rick? Okay, we're going to go to Jonathan Welch.
Yeah, I just had a real quick question about funding. This is an interesting process, and I have no idea where you guys are coming up with the money for this position.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go to Ben Burma.
Yeah.
Hi, Ben Bama, San Juan Island. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. I just wanted to say that it was, first off, thank you for all of the hard work that you folks have put in on this, and as always, for allowing public comment. And I just wanted to say that it was really good to hear Commissioner Shanks go into some detail about the feedback that she has gotten. I wasn't sure if it was from the public or from county employees, or maybe both, just with the issues of the difficulty of getting enforcement to happen. And I just want to say that with my own personal experience on a few occasions and some people I'm close to, their experiences, that getting enforcement to happen when code violations are actually occurring is quite difficult. And I just want to accentuate that and emphasize that if nothing else comes out of this whole thing, that's the single most important thing that may happen, is just the ability to enforce much better the rules that we do have. Hopefully there will be new rules to enforce, but I just wanted to give my support to that, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Ben. We're going to go to Robin Reed.
Hi there, my name is Robin Reed, and I'm a professor of environmental science and sustainability. And I just want to thank you all for the hard thought you're putting into this. And I guess we're all really aware of the multiple threats to this LLC, and just keeping that really in mind as you're doing this. And we also, there was someone that mentioned the younger generation. I teach students, and a lot of them are extremely angry at our generation for the fact that we haven't moved harder and faster. And so I really like the idea that you're trying to be bold and you're trying to be proactive. I think that's super important, and I would encourage you to be bolder and even more proactive, because of our children and grandchildren, very much so. I think in the Home Rule Charter, one of the pieces that is particularly proactive, we can see that our current environmental laws are just either not being enforced or they're not effective, either one, and they're allowing a great deal of degradation of our land and sea. And I would encourage you to really consider the very proactive nature of the rights of nature and the Bill of Rights that another subcommittee is developing, or you could think of it as Earth Justice, whatever how you'd like to look at it. And then finally, and I really like the comments about collaboration, how important that is to do. In other words, the home builder as part of the OCE. That sounds like a great idea in the sense that, don't be in the echo chamber. So collaborate, 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 and really take full advantage of the talent in the county. I found in a great deal of work and collaboration that using carrots rather than sticks, first and foremost is, giving people the incentive to do the right thing and making sure they're educated about what the right thing is can be really effective, with, of course, the hammer behind it if they don't. And so anyway, I think you're on the right track. I fully support the idea of developing an OCE. I don't really understand how it couldn't be an elected position and how it would have any power if it weren't elected. I don't get that, but I'm not a governmental person, so I can't comment so much on that. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Robin. Are there any other members of the public that care to speak at this point? I'm not seeing any, but.
Sure, I could go. This is Chom Grison from Lopez.
Okay, Chom, please.
Can you
go.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I want to also express appreciation for all the hard work and thoughtfulness that you have put into this. And I would like to voice my support for some experimentation. You know, we do not know how to, we may not know how best to address the unprecedented crisis that we are in, but it doesn't hurt to go bold and try. We may learn things along the way, but at least we give it our best shot. And I feel like the idea that you've been discussing is just worth trying, given the urgency that we are faced with, and the future generations that we really want to want to make sure that we leave a good legacy for them. And also, I would like to, I totally support what Robin said, firstly about incorporating some kind of rights of nature language into the charter as well. And the enforcement sounds like a hard-edged approach, and we are in such a divisive, in an era of such great division. So if there's a way to try to kind of bring people together, have, bring people along so that everyone is part of the solutions, like use the approach like restorative justice or something that could get to the solution and also repair relationships as we go along. If there's something that speaks to that kind of principle too, I would definitely support that. And lastly, I just would like to say that I don't know if there's a way for the whole, this is a once in a decade kind of effort, but if there are ways for us to also adjust along the way, things may not work out, or I don't know if there's a way for our county to be nimble, the elected official. I don't know if I don't know how to articulate it very well, but I would love for us as a county to be nimble and flexible and adjust along the way. I don't have clear solution to offer, but I just would like, that kind of quality to be considered somehow. And thank you so much for all your hard work and attention.
Trump, thank you very much today. Other members of the public that would like to speak? I have Kai.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kai Sandburn. I'm calling from Lopez, and I will speak very briefly. You often hear that any policies to mitigate against climate and protect our environment and nature will be too costly. And I think we are all aware of the cost of not doing anything, and that for me, it has got to be a first priority in how we approach governance, how we approach each other, and how we change as a society. So I just want to say I'm also an advocate for the rights of nature. I see that as addressing the behavioral changes that are needed for us to allow, facilitate us taking a more holistic approach to climate and the protection of nature. And again, thank you for your work.
Thank you for your comments today. We're going to go to Councilmember Wolf and then Bo.
Greetings, commissioners. And Mr. Ranker, I want to assure you that as a public official, I do not wish to do anything inappropriate. I would like to congratulate you on your work, and I wholeheartedly support the idea of permeating every decision that's made within the county with an awareness of climate change and environmental preservation. So whatever you decide, just know that that is the approach that I intend to take as your leader on council. And I very much appreciate the hours that you have put in thinking about this.
Thank you very much, council member. Is it Bo? Is that out?
Yeah, thanks. Pretty sure you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. And could you introduce yourself for the record and let us know where you're calling from?
Yeah, well, I'm calling from an automobile in Bellingham, Washington, and my name's Nathan Brando. I own a number of businesses here in San Juan Island, and actually kind of throughout the region. And I'm just calling in to try to give you guys a little guidance on the issue. Seems tragically misguided. Don't know where on earth you come up with the idea that the appropriate level of government to handle an issue like climate change would be a county organization, and how that's going to create a functional space for businesses to operate in. You guys won't have any impact on a broader issue, and you might pat yourselves on the back for trying to solve an issue that's grossly outside of your control. And you might have some decent attempt at garnering more votes for yourself, this is clearly an attempt for that, and just to use and abuse more county dollars in an irrational way. But if your goal, no, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. You get to hear me. That's what this is about.
I just would ask you not to impugn any other members of the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, well, stating my opinion doesn't impugn anyone. It's telling you why you're doing what you're doing. It's clear to anyone with half a brain. And all you're going to do is chase perfectly good businesses out of San Juan County. So if that's your goal, right? All you're going to do is relocate activity to other places. I'm curious why you think a county that is heavily dependent on the burning of diesel fuel, and the largest climate impact you have is for residents to access the islands with highly inefficient diesel burning boats. Like, how on earth you actually plan to have any kind of real hope to change anything? It just seems kind of tragic. And why an island community that's 100% based on the burning of fossil fuel to access this county would even attempt to address things that are, I mean, you don't even have control of your own access to your own county, right? Like, how do you hope to have any significant impact?
Okay. Thank you very much, Nathan.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the public? If not, we're going to go back to our deliberations. Any other comments? Okay, I don't see any. So yes.
David?
Yeah, hang on. I've got you and then Kyle. I'm just making sure. Okay, so we're going to close public comment, and then we're going to go back to our deliberation. I have David Dellendorf, and then Kyle, and then Sharon.
You're not going to believe this, but the focus of my comment is different than elected versus appointed. I have a kind of a question and a concern. This is quite a lengthy document, the first 2 pages. A lot of detail here. How much of this, Kevin, actually, if approved, actually goes on to the ballot? Because I'm concerned that there's too much detail for an elector to digest when they're making their decision. And maybe it's got too many things in here that could lead to them potentially finding something they don't like, because there's such a long shopping list. They might find something they don't like and then say no, because I don't think the county should do this, but they agree with everything else. So I'm just wondering if how lengthy is it going to be? How much detail, and would it be in our best interest, depending upon what we come up with, to have a shorter ballot measure that doesn't have so much detail? Thank you.
Thank you, David. If members don't mind, I can respond to that briefly. Okay, so David, there will be a ballot title prepared by the prosecuting attorney. There will be a pro and a con statement for anything on the ballot, and then there will be other information available, but not all of it. Not everything is on the ballot. Similar to other charters, there'll be a description, but not all of it would be on the ballot. One of the reasons for doing the findings and such as the background is so that that information is available for the county as it moves forward as well. But not everything on it, just like in last charters where they've gone through and changed things. There's the summary, but not everything you're seeing before you would be on the ballot. The other issue is that for today, as I expressed earlier, and we're going to get through a couple more people and then we're going to go for executive action. I'm not going to propose, because it's very clear to me that there needs to be more discussion on the individual items. But I do think the question of whether or not we would adopt the motion of moving forward with the recommendation from the subcommittee to create the department, which would be headed by an elected official. I do believe that that is a timely question that we should put to bed. And so I would like to, in a moment, ask if there was a person who wanted to put a motion to that effect on the table. And then we could move forward, because we do have some other items we wanted to talk about tonight, and we've got about 21 minutes left. But David, I hope that answered your question. But the other reason I'm not going into total detail on that, and I think Randy or actually Mylene could speak to that even in more detail, is because that's not the action that'll be for us this evening, because we're going to have more discussion as well. But that was a summary, at least.
Thank you.
David, I hope it summarized well.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Kyle and then Sharon.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to close off comments if there are more, but I do want to participate in the vote, and I'm watching a computer battery, which is no one else's problem. I would like to move that we take the vote on issue 1 in front of the whole CRC.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion on a second. The motion before us is to take action on issue 1. That would, the way the motion is phrased, it would state that we are then adopting the full recommendation with each of those bullet points and so on, which if that's people's will, that is fine as well. I was saying a little bit different from that, which was, well, it doesn't matter, actually. I want to clarify. That's the motion that's on the table, which is sufficient, and we can see if there's support for that. In response to this motion, so under discussion for this motion, we have Dick and then Sharon.
I would like to propose a friendly amendment to the mover and the second, and that is that we not propose something of that detail, but instead do what Kevin proposed, which I think is the better idea, that the action would be that we approve the idea of creating this office headed by an elected official, with the understanding that a lot of the detail that we've gone through so far, and there's more to come, would get worked out later. But the basic concept that there would be this office headed by an elected official, that be your motion if you're willing.
That would be a friendly amendment if the maker and the second are willing to consider.
I would consider that. I thought that was implied just in the way subcommittees approached the CRC, but accepted.
Okay. Liz?
I'm open to it, yes.
Okay, so the motion on the table is now that we will move forward with the creation of the Office of Climate and Environment headed by the Climate and Environment Commissioner. So I had Sharon. No?
I just wanted to know, well, I have my hand raised for something else from previously, but I wanted to know who seconded, and then now I know it's Liz.
Yeah, Kyle made the motion, Liz seconded, Dick Grout made the friendly amendment, which was accepted. I see David and then Bob.
I'm going to vote no, because I want to know the experience of other counties with either an elected or an appointed position, as I suggested earlier. I would, if this vote were for an appointed position, I would vote yes, but I'm going to vote no, because I don't think we have enough information on the benefits or disadvantages of an elected versus appointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob.
Yeah, you did leave out the word elected in your last reading of the motion, so that's included in the proposition 1.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the motion on the table is that the CRC would recommend to the voters the creation of a Office of Climate and Environment headed by the independently elected climate commissioner. Okay. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Raise
Say
your
aye,
hand.
is physically raised.
Aye.
So I can count it off.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Oh,
so,
favor.
Aye.
I'm
yeah,
down.
okay. So I have in favor, I have Sharon and David and Liz and
No,
Well, your hand is raised, David.
Take your hand down then, David.
the other hand, my real hands are down.
Okay,
Okay.
all in favor, please, since we're on a screen, all in favor, please physically raise your hand and I will call you off. I have David Anderson. I have Sharon Abreu. I have Liz Lafferty. I have Kyle Davies. I have Bob O'Connell. I have Jane Fuller. I have Janet Burnell. Patty, are you a no? Or you're not in favor? Okay. I have Maureen C. I have Dick Grout. I have myself. And I have Anne Marie Shanks. Did I miss anybody voting in favor? Okay. All those opposed? Okay. I have Tom Starr, David Dellendorf, Paul Dossett, Olivia Roseberry. Any other opposed? Okay.
Has Tony disappeared?
Yes, he did. Any abstentions? Patty Garcia, any other abstentions? Okay, under that count, I have 11 in favor, 4 opposed, and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for the very thoughtful debate. My feeling for going forward is that we will put this on the first agenda we can, and it will be next week, to continue working out details on this. And then hopefully in that amount of time, we can also have further consultation with our prosecuting attorney on some of the issues he's raised, so that those can be taken into consideration when we finalize those details. Bob, I see your hand.
Yes, just very, very shortly, on behalf of the entire commission and on behalf of our committee, I would like to thank Anne Marie Shanks and sing her praises as a wonderful, wonderful committee chairperson.
Yes.
And also for taking the grilling this evening.
Yes.
Anne Marie, thank you. You're stellar. Just thank you very much. Okay. So if folks don't mind, I'd like to move on to new business for the last, Sharon, please go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to quickly say in response to what Nathan said before, that we may be one small county, but one small county can set an example for a whole state, a whole country, and the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, Anne Marie, please.
So will the committee come back and do their other items in a week or so?
Yes, sorry. So not only finalize the bullet points on this, but also the other items that were on your agenda. And I apologize, we didn't get to those this evening. Call her the architect. I agree, Kyle. Okay, Bob, please.
I do have another procedural question, Kevin. If we have something that is this big and we put this much of it on the ballot, is only this much of it now law? Or is the whole thing that we came up with part of the new charter?
So that's, what we're going to do is have a further conversation with our auditor and likely our prosecutor on that too, because to David's point that he raised earlier, I think I gave a knowledgeable summary of that from my conversations on that topic, but I want to be able to finalize that as well. And so what we will do is get that exact detail of what is on the ballot, what isn't, and how that works, so that everybody's aware of that going forward. And that's not important just for this issue, but for every recommendation we're putting forward, because many of them have quite a bit of detail behind them. Dick, you have a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a request, and that is that anyone among us who has not read the rest of the proposal, please do so and kind of know where you stand before the next meeting, so we don't have to have Anne Marie reading the whole thing and consuming time that way. If we all do our own reading, then we have more time for discussion.
Excellent. Excellent point. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Under new business, we were moving forward with hiring individual from the community that we had spoken about quite a bit. in discussions with our prosecutor's office, actually not with the prosecutor, but with Amy Vera, that I had on Monday, and then a conversation with the individual, it came up an idea of possibly having that individual be hired through the prosecuting attorney's office as a deputy prosecutor, as opposed to working directly for the Charter Review Commission. That conversation came up for a couple reasons, but one was there was a question of what this person would be doing. But then the thing that was interesting to me when I spoke to Amy, and I will say that it was a really positive conversation that she and I had, going through kind of pros and cons and so on, was that this person would be able to do more of the environmental research, justice and equity research, where they actually had some expertise, and could lend that to the PA's office. When I say PA, just so folks know, I'm saying prosecuting attorney. And so I was amenable to that, but we still had to have a conversation. And I had not had the opportunity to speak to our prosecuting attorney yet. And I had also not had an opportunity to speak to our vice chair. And so before that shift happened, I did send it out in an email to the full commission that this was being discussed last week. But it hadn't been finalized. And I think it's really important, as I said in an email just before this meeting started, that I sent to the PA as well as the full commission and the county manager. I think it's really important that all of us remember that we on this commission are independently elected officials. So we have our own authority and our own structure and so on. But B, we're volunteers. And C, many of us are still working full-time jobs in addition to trying to pull this off. And so that communication hadn't happened yet. And there was an email sent out saying, hey, go ahead and start responding to Kyle. And because the vice chair and I hadn't had a conversation, I immediately replied and said, hey, we've got to finalize some things to the commissioners, who wrote back saying, I want to talk to Kyle right away. The prosecutor then sent a lengthy email stating that the contract was not in place, and taking some action with our IT department, which, as I said in the email, I find it odd or unusual that that the commission wasn't brought into that conversation. However, at this point in time, the individual and I spoke this evening, and with all the back and forth where we are, that individual is not going to take the position. And so we are now in a situation where we need to find somebody to do the research and the drafting for us. I think the research portion is lessening. I recognize that I believe Justice and Equity, and I believe the Environment Committee will still have some questions that are going to need some support as far as, look, David brought up, let's actually dive into the other counties in more detail, or other jurisdictions, and some of those pros and cons. I know in Justice and Equity, Jane, the chair, the co-chairs have raised similar situations or similar questions. I do feel, however, there is going to be a significant need for drafting. And part of it is getting to the questions that have just come up of how are we putting this all together and finalizing it. And so we're going to need somebody who has drafting experience. And so I wanted to share this update with the commission, see if there's any questions. And then what I would like to suggest is that the vice chair and I, Olivia and I, in a very expedited manner, as quickly as we possibly can, find somebody else and get them under contract quickly. I am not going to propose at this point that we go down the route of having that person be through the prosecuting attorney's office. So they would not be doing any of the legal research that started to come up in the last few days, just because I think that adds another wrinkle that that we don't have the time for, frankly, anymore. This was 2 weeks ago we were starting this conversation. So if any commissioners have any comments or questions or thoughts on that, Maureen, please.
I just thought we had no problem seeking an independent contractor. I thought that's what this was going to be.
Yeah, thank you. So just to clarify that the question came up that if they were maybe doing more legal related work, that they should be appropriately through the prosecuting attorney's office, since the prosecutor is our counsel. Originally, my intention was not that they be doing legal research. It was that they be doing research. And for me, there is a very clear line there. There's a bright line, which is, for instance, again, I think Commissioner Dellendorf brought up a great example, like researching what are the scenarios that exist, in the county or I mean, in the state or in the country or globally. That's not legal research. That's just research. But that back and forth questioning started to come up. And then it was suggested, the first I heard about it was maybe late last week when I emailed each of you, this idea had come up. And I believe it came from the individual having a conversation with Amy first, that I was not privy to. And then that individual raised it with me. So I reached out to Amy, and then the conversation escalated. And like I said, at my first inclination was that this may be a bonus to us. But the way the conversation has gone over the last 2 days, unfortunately, it's not going to work out. So now the idea would be this person would work for us. We're going to go back to the original and not get caught up in that. And they'll just do research and drafting for us and help us finally, frankly, finish our work. I've also asked Catherine if she might have some more availability, but she has another county position, which is actually just starting to ramp up. It's within the court system. And so now that the courts are actually beginning to have in-person court dates, she will not have as much time, but she is going to get back to me on if she could ramp up a little bit just for some of the staffing. Other questions? Anne-Marie Shanks, and then Jane.
Yes, so I just want to understand kind of the playing field we're working on here. So my understanding would be that no one that's allowed to practice law in the state of Washington can do work for us as the commission to do research. Is that kind of where we're at?
No, so if they're an attorney.
That question. I can
Randy,
answer that question.
You haven't been called on. So
But the question is a legal question.
Randy, I will recognize you in a moment, please. So that if someone is an attorney, can they do work for the CRC? Yes. If they're doing legally related work, no, because that should be going appropriately through the prosecuting attorney. So I've got Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just want to state that I'm very, very disappointed with this event that's transpired. Very disappointed. The nature of the work that Justice and Equity needed support on is research. It's not legal advice. As a committee, we've already been deliberating and deciding on proposed amendments. I have spent countless hours of my own time to do research into these issues, much of which the prosecuting attorney has been copied on, because frankly, one of the first pieces of information I received from his office was quite contrary to the aspirations we had of some of the work that we were aiming to do. And so I have been doing my own research, not paid anything. I'm one of the commissioners who has a full-time job and a family. I can't continue to do that. And yet I'm facing a significant deadline with the rest of my committee to complete our work by next Thursday. And I expected, given what we thought was going to happen, was that this person would be well positioned not to give legal advice, but to do some background research. And I know exactly what that research is. I've put to you as both chair and vice chair, the nature of the kinds of help we needed. And it is not legal research. It's research in issues of justice and equity. We were not looking for legal opinion. So I'm deeply disappointed with this. And quite frankly, we will not be in a position to just have anybody come and do the research that we need to have done in the amount of time we have left. And so I want to be on the record saying this is highly problematic. And I would like the prosecuting attorney to explain why he has put this situation before us. And I would also like to know why we've jumped off ship and we will no longer work with Kyle Loring. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I have David Dellendorf, and if I don't see any other hands, then I'm going to call on the prosecutor.
Why can't Kyle do non-legal work for us? Has he decided not to do anything for us if it's not legal? Because he would be good at doing the basic research of a non-legal nature that Jane is talking about.
That was the original intention. And I have worked with Kyle on a very similar project for the US Congress, and he was incredible.
Yes.
I think he's extremely well qualified to do that. But the way the discussion has gone now, I'm not sure it's going to work out. In my conversation with the individual this afternoon. And we can get some clarification from the prosecutor if there aren't any other hands at this point.
All right.
Randy, please.
Yeah, sure. So let's begin. I gave you an advice last week in a memorandum that the prosecuting attorney is your legal advisor. Legal advice is defined in the rules of professional conduct and the general rules of the court, and it includes research and writing on legal topics. We asked Kyle Loring what he thought he was asked to do. He thought he was asked to do legal work. The prosecuting attorney is your sole lawyer, and that's by constitution. And that's because the people of this state elected me to be your lawyer. And I know this is an awkward situation where you wish you could go choose somebody else, but I don't get to choose the client. You don't get to choose the lawyer. This is the situation that you have to work with it. So all lawyers who work for the county are hired by me to do legal work, whether it's legal advice, legal research, writing, drafting, anything. And so when somebody has a law degree, it is impossible for them to separate out what is law-related work, legal work, and so on. It's just not possible. The rules of professional conduct have a specific rule about this. We consulted those rules. We checked everything. We're doing the ethically right thing and consistent with the law. Read the case I talked to you about last week, Drummond versus Banks versus Drummond. It addresses this very topic exactly. We are following the law, and that's what I'm asking you to do. So you have a contract with Catherine Hansen, and Catherine Hansen's contract provides that she can provide and will take on tasks to contact other charter counties, obtain information and documents, and do legal research for you. She will draft recommendations and help members. That's all within the scope of her work. That's the contract that's approved. You are to work with the resources you have. That's what I do. That's what you do. I'm sorry this is a difficulty for you, Jane. I wish it wasn't. It could have been addressed earlier by finding another person. You'll have to work with the resources you have. That's what every elected official has to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I will clarify a couple of things. One is that the individual's name was shared with the full commission and the prosecutor's office more than 2 weeks ago, I believe. And we didn't hear any, I didn't hear any changes on this. The commission didn't hear any changes on this.
I didn't hear any name until last week.
So
Kevin, last week.
Can you please wait to be recognized?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. And so the name was vetted or at least raised in the commission meeting publicly some time ago. So it is unfortunate we're in this situation, but we are where we are. We also, as was originally raised, our current staff person does not have the time to do the amount of work that we're talking about, which is why the county council appropriately granted us additional funds to do this. So as I said, my recommendation now is that your vice chair and I work diligently to find somebody else to help us with drafting the final recommendations and supporting the committees. And it will not be in a legal manner. I would also, I would raise a question, and Randy, you and I have a schedule call tomorrow evening that hopefully we can still meet. But at that point, I will get clarification from the prosecutor. There are a number of people in county departments who do a ton of research into planning issues, into environmental issues, into equity issues, whatever, who are not attorneys, and some of them actually are attorneys, and they're not within the prosecutor's office. And so my understanding, and I've read the case that was shared by the prosecutor as well as done a ton of other research over the last several days. My understanding is that a staff person for our commission, an independent staff person, can in fact do research. There is a very bright line, however, that the prosecutor is touching upon, which is they can't do the legal research for us. So when it comes to legal drafting or legal questions, those will go through the prosecutor's office as they have. The idea of a staff person not being able to do any research, however, I don't think is a reality that we're facing. Our staff person will be able to do research for us and do drafting for us. And if there's a clarification I need on that, I can finalize that with the prosecutor tomorrow evening when we speak at length. So Are there other, Maureen?
I just want to say, Kevin, I'm sorry that there is so much load on you through this, and I totally support you and Olivia finding someone. And if any of us know of anyone that might be an appropriate person, we'll pass that on to you. Thank you for all the extra work you're having to do in this very unusual situation.
I will say that when somebody asked me on the street if I thought I would run for that position, I said, I thought I was done with San Juan County employment 15 years ago, and I stupidly did it again, and I'm done again. Anyway, any other comments at this point in time? If not, we're 3 minutes over. Okay. I want to thank you all. Tonight was a really engaged conversation, and I think it was one of the ones where we had some real, I won't say contention, I will say differences of opinion with our commission, and I think that everybody handled themselves in a really positive way. And so thank you for that. It remains a pleasure and an honor to get to serve with each of you. And with that, I would love a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait, hang on. Anne Marie, did you have a motion to adjourn? Oh, okay. And I saw a second. All right. Everybody have a wonderful evening. And Olivia and Catherine, I think we're still on now, right?
Who was this? Excuse me, who was the second?
Janet Barnell.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow morning.